The side symbolizes evil and death. Thus, demons use this method to carry out killings. This also signifies hell's harvesting of human lives, driven by greed and desire. They cast their sinful gaze upon young maidens. They replicated the genes of Jesus into the girl's body, and sacrificed the fetus as a carrier to Satan, attempting to release the fallen angels trapped in the eternal hell. The ancient book of Isaiah records the great battle between gods and demons. The fallen angel Lucifer's heart was consumed by power and desire, and he declared war against the divine. However, his pride led him to misjudge his own strength. In the fierce battle, Lucifer was suppressed by the holy radiance of the Archangel Michael. Ultimately, he was sealed in the endless hell deep within the earth. Michael placed his holy cross sword upon the seal. If Lucifer could repent, the holy sword would open the gate to return to heaven. If he remained obstinate, he would be eternally bound to hell. Thus, Lucifer was sealed beneath the earth, but his heart was filled with bitterness and rage. 1,000 years later, in a mountaintop church, a group of demon-worshipping cultists established an evil organization. They believe that one day in the future, Lucifer will break free from the confines of hell and reign over the world once again. Before that happens, they need to obtain the shroud of Jesus before his death according to ancient texts, to extract his genes and clone the deceased Jesus. Then, they will sacrifice this holy body to Lucifer. This way, he would be able to see the light of day again. In the past 200 years, the shroud of Jesus has only been exhibited twice. Ordinary people have no qualification to view it. Today happens to be the third exhibition of the shroud of Jesus. In order to witness the true form of the shroud, as an art historian, Laura certainly wouldn't miss this opportunity. She asked her friend Father Mark to take her into the church. After the two of them visited the shroud, Mark decided to show Laura something very special. Following Mark's lead, Laura arrived at a palace. The scene before her left her in awe. Inside the hall, various statues dazzled before her eyes, and the statue of the Archangel Michael defeating Lucifer stood prominently in the center, strikingly noticeable. A sense of divine majesty overwhelmed her. Laura couldn't help but feel a surge of emotions. She listened intently as Mark explained the great battle, secretly grateful that if Michael hadn't stepped forward, the world would have been ruled by Lucifer's darkness long ago. But thinking of the prophecy that the demon would one day return to the world, she shuddered and silently prayed that that day would never come. After saying goodbye to Laura, Mark left the palace for some business. Laura picked up her brush and sat in front of the statue to capture this story-filled scene. Just as she was deeply focused, a mysterious sound suddenly came from behind her. She looked around but found no one there, then continued to immerse herself in the painting. Just as she casually flipped through the papers, she caught a glimpse of the Lucifer statue in the corner of her eye, which seemed to move for a moment. Laura's heart raced suddenly, but when she focused on the statue, Lucifer was still once again. Laura was fully focused on the situation before her. She didn't notice a cloaked woman standing behind her. The woman's name was Liz, and she was one of Lucifer's most devoted followers. Her purpose for being there was to seize the shroud of Jesus, in order to try to resurrect Lucifer. At this moment, Liz had climbed up the statue, and taken the angel's sword from Michael's hand. Laura glanced at the time, and it was nearly midnight, so she prepared to leave the church. However, just as she turned around, she witnessed a guard being decapitated. Fear instantly filled her heart. Laura turned and ran for her life, but the church doors were locked. In her panic, Laura hid inside the cabinet where the shroud was stored. She peered through the gap to watch the movements outside. Liz carried the head of the guard and walked towards the exhibition of sacred relics. After using facial recognition to disable the alarm, she wildly swung the angel's sword at the display case. The loud noise attracted Mark. He witnessed Liz's act of desecration and angrily rushed forward to stop her. But Liz was quick and agile. She kicked Mark down to the ground. Then she pierced Mark's chest with the holy sword. But at this moment, Laura's scream startled Liz. Unexpectedly, Liz didn't kill him. Instead, she ordered her subordinates to take her back to their base, and muttered, "The demon seems to have set its sights on her." After a few people left the church, Mark, lying on the ground, wasn't dead. He was rescued by a burst of blue light from above. As the energy gradually entered his body, it turned out to be the Archangel Michael descending. Michael possessed Mark's body. As Liz and the others drove away with Laura, Mark chased them for several blocks. Just as he was about to reach the vehicle, his body collapsed under the strain of the Archangel's power. Now, he could only wait for his strength to recover, before replanning to reclaim the sacred relic and save the people. Meanwhile, Liz initiated her plan. In a high-end auction house, a man stood on the stage, with a smug expression on his face, showing off his latest invention to the greedy wealthy below. It was a cloning technology that defied human ethics. As long as one obtained someone's genes, they could create a copy. In the past few years, this mysterious organization had secretly cloned many scientists and artists. As the auction was in full swing, Liz quietly made her appearance. The man in charge of the auction caught sight of her and handed over the proceedings to a colleague. He turned and respectfully escorted Liz to the laboratory. The theft of the shroud caught the church's attention. The two priests solemnly retrieved the surveillance footage and couldn't help but feel compassion upon seeing Mark's brutal murder. However, in an instant, Mark appeared behind them. Seeing the shocked priests, Mark didn't have time to explain. He urgently asked the priests where the guardian of the shroud was. The priests were still in shock and told him that the guardian of the relic was Cardinal Vinny, but he had been locked away in an asylum for proclaiming that the demon would return to the world. Mark quickly deleted the surveillance footage and then borrowed the priest's car to head to the asylum where the cardinal was kept. At this moment, Laura suddenly woke up. She was terrified to find herself in a cell, surrounded by transparent glass. Strangely, the area was filled with women who had desperate expressions. Before long, a group of cold-eyed men wearing masks burst in. They roughly collected her blood and took photographs. Meanwhile, Mark had arrived at the asylum and found Vinny. He instantly recognized from Mark's eyes that the person before him was the Archangel Michael. During their conversation, he learned that the shroud was missing. A flicker of panic crossed Vinny's eyes. He couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. After years of guarding, a mistake had finally occurred. He then informed Mark of the results of his long investigation. Due to their fragile bodies, humans are unable to withstand the power of angels. The body that carries Lucifer's arrival must possess eternal blood, and this blood can only be found in Jesus. Although Jesus has passed away, the shroud had absorbed his blood. As long as his genes are extracted, cloning would be possible. Mark was shocked and worried upon hearing this. If Lucifer truly descended, humanity would fall into an irretrievable abyss. Meanwhile, in the laboratory, a group of biologists was trying to extract gene fragments of Jesus from the shroud. Just at the moment of success, the entire mountain began to shake violently. Lucifer, who was imprisoned in hell, sensed that his opportunity for escape was approaching. He gathered all his strength and pulled out the heavenly sword that had sealed him for thousands of years. This sword had imprisoned him for millennia. At last, today, he could finally see the light of day again. Then Liz brought Laura and another woman, Moni, to the laboratory. The cold operating table made Laura and Moni shiver. Both were filled with fear, but powerless to resist. Watching the two tightly bound to the table, Liz issued the command to inject Jesus's genes into their bodies. Then Liz walked over to Laura, her eyes reflecting madness. She declared herself as God's messenger, and that she would implant a fertilized egg into them. That child would become the most important being. Laura's heart was filled with anger, yet she couldn't break free from her restraints. Afterward, the two were chained and taken to an empty square. The lights turned on. They looked out of place wearing holy white gauze. The silent gaze of the onlookers made the atmosphere even more eerie. Suddenly, the main door opened. A demon appeared. It dragged them into an iron cage. As the mechanism activated, the cage descended rapidly, and underground, a horde of demons that had been waiting for a long time surged up and pinned them down. Lucifer transformed into a cloud of black smoke and soared into the sky. Then it slipped into Moni's mouth. She struggled and screamed in agony, but her body was too weak to withstand Lucifer's power. Laura watched this scene in terror. The black smoke emerged from Moni's mouth again. Laura was held down by the demon and could only watch as black smoke entered her body. The demons noticed she had no abnormal reaction and began to leave. They left Laura alone in the cage. Seeing her plan come to fruition, Liz changed into a red robe and brought Laura to the center of the church. In the eyes of the entranced cultists, she had become the mother of demons. Then, Laura was locked back in the glass room. Liz coldly informed her that there was a new Jesus in her body and asked her to raise the fetus obediently. The unknown fear made her forget to scream. Mark, possessed by Michael, had infiltrated the base. He found the shroud of Jesus in the laboratory. Through the surveillance, he saw that Liz had completed the parasitic ritual, which made him extremely anxious. He knew very well that at this moment, the only way was to bring Laura back to the church, and the archbishops would find a way to deal with this difficult situation. First, he destroyed the gas tanks in the laboratory and ignited the gas, causing an explosion. That attracted the security guards. Watching the guards rush over with fire extinguishers, he hurriedly ran to the ward to find Laura. However, just as his hand touched Laura, Lucifer's voice echoed in his ear. He realized that something was wrong. Mark hurriedly pulled Laura into a secluded storage room, and learned that Laura was already pregnant. Mark stated that she must abort the fetus as soon as possible. Otherwise, if Lucifer descended, the consequences would be unimaginable. Taking advantage of the absence of others, they planned to escape through the underground passage, but to their surprise, a demon was waiting inside. This human body was no match for the demon. The alarm attracted Liz's attention. In the end, Laura was taken back to the laboratory again. Mark was locked in the cellar with iron chains by Liz. Seeing the gates of hell right before him, Mark felt a surge of power rising from deep within his soul. Then, the light of power burst forth, breaking free from his confinement. The powerful force opened the gates of hell. Mark gazed at the creatures just within reach, and decisively jumped into the endless abyss. When he awoke from his unconsciousness, he found himself in the 18th level of hell. Mark made his way to the cliff that once sealed Lucifer, but at this moment on the cliff, Lucifer and his divine sword had vanished. Suddenly, several demons appeared. They used Lucifer's sword to imprison Mark on the same cliff. The doctor was carefully examining Laura's body. The fetus was unharmed, which eased Liz and the others' minds a bit. Then she leaned close to Laura's ear and whispered temptingly, "As long as you give birth to the child, you will regain your freedom." Months later, Laura's abdomen had swollen significantly. The vessel for Lucifer's arrival was about to be born. Every night, when it was quiet and dark, the evil power flooded in like a tide, dragging Laura into one nightmare after another. This torment made her consider the idea of rebellion. However, Lucifer keenly sensed Laura's thoughts. To ensure that his vessel would be born smoothly, he used his powers to manipulate Laura. Laura felt a moment of dizziness. Then the evil embodiment slithered out of her body like a snake, wrapping around her arm. Then it suddenly burrowed into her brain. Laura's consciousness was consumed. Lucifer controlled her body and slaughtered the staff outside. The brutality was chilling. When Laura finally regained consciousness, she realized that the child inside her was severely affecting her. She rushed into the storeroom at all costs, trembling as she picked up a bucket of unknown liquid and poured it over her head. A strong pain instantly spread through her abdomen. She rolled on the ground, unable to stop the pain. At the critical moment, Liz rushed in, but Lucifer once again took control of Laura. He grabbed Liz by the throat and pinned her to the ground. He warned Liz not to make any more mistakes and ordered her to keep a close watch on Laura. After a struggle, Laura vomited all the unknown liquid. Afterward, everyone locked Laura into a stasis chamber. Lucifer transformed into black mist and retreated into hell. He possessed a demon's body and laughed at the trapped Michael. He declared that Michael's time had passed and that soon he would rule everything. Michael blared in anger, but was powerless to act. After Lucifer left, a few little demons, who had heard of Michael's imprisonment, came here. Because of the tyrannical rule of the ruler, they were unable to reincarnate, and suffered from the oppression of demons. Therefore, they wanted to help Michael overthrow this unjust rule, so they found the holy sword, and handed it over to Michael. With his divine power restored, Michael slaughtered the demon leader, and returned to Mark's body once more. He then returned to the human realm. A battle between good and evil was about to erupt. After restoring his energy, Mark went to the prison to unlock the stasis chamber where Laura was held. However, Laura was now completely under Lucifer's control. Just as Lucifer was about to kill Michael, the amniotic fluid in Laura's belly suddenly broke. With no choice, Laura had to give birth to the baby with Jesus's genes. On the stone table, with a cry, the child entered the world. Lucifer possessed the child. Laura instantly regained her consciousness. At this moment, the gates of hell burst open. Mark rushed over suddenly and tightly grasped Laura's hand. He exerted all his strength to pull her back. Liz appeared in front of many believers holding her child to celebrate Lucifer's rebirth. But they didn't know that all of this was Liz's conspiracy. Today, it wasn't just Lucifer who descended, but also demons from hell. With a single command from Liz, the monsters began a bloody massacre of the followers. They used their blood to baptize Lucifer. In the end, except for Liz, everyone else became sacrifices. The demons far in hell sensed the opening of the gates of hell and rushed out. Liz was about to escape with the child when Mark and Laura arrived just in time to knock her down, and he informed her that Lucifer was blinded by hatred. This foolish act was God's conspiracy. How could the genes of the Jesus possibly free him? In reality, it was God's intention to imprison him for all eternity. At this moment, Mark told Laura to take the child to find Vinny. He then turned and ran toward the exit of the gates of hell. With the explosion of the bomb in his hand, the demons and the entrance to hell were buried beneath the ruins. As time continued to pass, the child had grown into an adult. When Laura left the jungle, holding the child, Liz was hiding behind a tree, watching the child. When she shouted the name Lucifer, a cloud of black smoke emerged from the boy's nostrils. This signified that the shadow of the demon would once again loom over the world. A new crisis was quietly approaching. Thus, the movie came to an end. The film excelled in creating an atmosphere, with meticulously designed visuals, sound effects, and scene arrangements. It established a chilling and terrifying ambience. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of oppression. This added a lot of horror to the film. It felt as if one was right in the midst of it. Overall, it is a movie worth watching. Friends who are interested can check out the original film The Demon Conspiracy. If you like my channel, please click subscribe.